Okay, I want to thank all the press for being here today. I know a lot of you just went to the Commissioner's press conference. Obviously today we're all aware that the Alpine study was released regarding the validity of the test here in the state of Florida. I want to talk about a few things. First, I want to make sure to encourage everybody, we're going to try to get this posted out to as many people as we can, that everybody reviews this very carefully. And don't listen to what I have to say today all the time, but please read what the report says, because I'm going to go over a few of those items that I think are very, very important for everybody to understand. First, Alpine agreed with all the districts when they reported that there were problems with the test administration. So we knew throughout the state that there were very serious problems related to the FSA. The study confirms that district test administrators from around the state, reported serious problems and that there were serious problems, okay? The study confirms that students who tested on the computer-based test were not able to demonstrate their content knowledge and skills. I think that's one of the most important items from this, that some of the students that were tested did not get an opportunity to show in simple terms what they had learned during the school year. I think that's real sad, that part of it, and we knew that because we saw it. The study also confirms that we should hold off on a high-stakes assessment program until we get it completely right. And that's something we've been saying in Leon County, and we've heard from superintendents throughout the state. The study confirms that teacher evaluations and school grades should be suspended for the 2014-15 school year. I'm pleased that the legislature asked Alpine to move forward with this. I want to thank the legislature for that, because we would have been having a lot of dialogue back and forth whether this really happened. All along we heard throughout the state that when students would log in to take this test, they were being bumped off. We had some students that waited 45 minutes to an hour in order to take this test, and we knew all along that that would affect the results of it. So again, I thank the legislature for that. A lot of times as superintendents, we don't say that, but we want to thank our legislature for coming forward and having something that evaluated what really happened. Several things that I've got in our press release that I have here that I wanted to talk about. Number one, I've got a real concern with the press conference today, with the information that we received, that we're going to move forward on school grades. Why would we move forward on school grades when we know that students were adversely affected by this test? So in other words, the school grade that we will get will not accurately reflect what the student learned during the school year or exactly what the school taught their children. So I've got a real concern with that. In Leon County, I'm going to take action immediately regarding teacher evaluations. We are not going to punitively give any teacher a negative or a harmful evaluation based on a test that we know that was flawed. So we're going to take those steps right away. And I think that sends a very important message, because in Leon County, I say over and over again, we have the best teachers in the state of Florida right here. So why would we not give them the opportunity to show what they have done in the classroom with an accurate, reliable test? So that's one of the steps we're going to take. Again, we're going to continue with our math end of course exams to make sure that we do not negatively affect students related to these EOCs at the end of the years related to the FSA. And again, I did a conference call today at 12:30 with our principals who do a great job, and we're not going to retain students on the basis of this test score alone. We're not going to retain a child when we know for a fact that the testing environment wasn't what it needed to be in order to measure the success of that student and what that student had accurately learned during the school year. So I think those are important steps that we're taking as a school district. And again, we've got to stop the over-testing of our students. We've just over-tested, tested, and this is what we get. We can get this right. Now, I'm one that has offered real solution to this problem, a real solution for several years now. We could go to a nationally normed test. They're out there, they're available, they've been proven, so we can compare our results in Tallahassee, Florida to the kids that are in Los Angeles or New York City. And we can see where we're doing benchmarking with other districts around the nation. We could still have school grades. We could still have teacher evaluations that were tied to this to show the improvement that they're making. And one of the reasons we've not gone to that, I've heard over and over again, and you've probably heard this as reporters, that these tests that are nationally normed, they don't match up to our standards. But when I look at the standards assessment that was giving with the item content match with intended Florida standards, in third grade, 33% showed no alignment to the standards. No alignment at all. But yet we still move forward. And that's been one of the excuses we've used not to go to a nationally normed test. So I think it's real important that we get this message out there. Last year I heard over and over again from my parents, my students, and my teachers about the fact that they were not able to adequately go in and to present on this test and to take this test to show the knowledge that they have learned during the school year. And I really think that it's a big mistake for us to move forward on school grades statewide when we now know that there were problems with the test. And I would hope, and I would challenge every superintendent in the state to do what we're doing in Leon County. Let's not affect our teachers' evaluations in a negative way because of an assessment that we know that was given was not reliable. And I think that's something as a whole state that I would challenge other superintendents to join us with this so we can make sure and let teachers know. I think we send a message to teachers throughout the state of Florida today to say, look, we want to make sure you get credit for everything you've done. We're not going to punitively hold you back from any evaluation that you would have. But at the same time, if students weren't able to log in and take a test, why would we make that part of your overall evaluation? We're losing our common sense on that. So again today, I'm pleased with the legislature. I'm pleased with the fact that we've recognized what we heard from individuals throughout this state, that there was a problem with this test, that the way that it was given out to all of our students was a problem for them, and that they didn't have an opportunity to show what they had learned during the school year. I've got a press release for you, and I wanted to cover a few items on this. Remember, I touched on this earlier, but as much as 1/3 of the test items did not match the intended Florida standards in some grades, especially at grade 3. Students were not presented with an opportunity to adequately represent their knowledge and skills. This is from Alpine. This isn't Jackie Pons. This is what the study said. The 2015 FSA administration did not meet the rigor and standardization expected with a high-stakes assessment program. Large-scale state assessment administration problems occurred, and this is all in the study. Again, I will close. I did ask principals to join me because you might have some questions about the standards. I want Stu, if you would, to speak to the item on matching up the standards. But before he does that, I'm going to ask one of our principals, Iris Wilson, to come forward to talk about why it's so important, just so everybody understands this, why it's so important that if we're going to test our students, that it must be aligned to the standards that we're teaching them. Because think about 1/3 of your content area you might not have covered during the school year, yet you're being tested on that. So Iris, I'll let you go first, and then Stu, thank you.
Thank you. Well, as an elementary principal, we hold every teacher accountable for teaching standards. They're hired to teach the standards, and we are told that that's what they'll be assessed on. And when you have 33% of those standards not on the test, it's hard to look at our children, to look at our parents, and say, we're sorry, we thought we were doing the right thing. We taught the standards, and they weren't assessed, and that's a big problem for our school.
Thank you, Iris. Stu?
Yep. So one of the things that I think the takeaway when you read either the summary or the larger actual study, they had expert teachers from around the state of Florida gather and review the test and make an alignment to the intended standard, which that standard measured. And so expert teachers and then Alpine researchers found that what was supposed to measure a standard actually didn't measure that exact standard, or there was room for interpretation. And when our teachers work really hard, and they're teaching the standards, and we go by our curriculum, we go by the information that the state has set forth, and when the teachers think that they're teaching to a certain level and we find out that that standard may not be measured in that way, I think what we do when we use that for evaluation is an injustice to the teachers, an injustice to the students, and then if we use those results as part of school grading, it's an injustice to the school community. So if you read the whole report, there's a lot of good information, a lot of takeaways that our superintendent has cautioned for the last 3 years that unfortunately have now taken place.
In closing, again, thank you all for being here. I've got a lot of principals that are here, our district leadership team that's worked with our principals. Again, you know we're one of the highest performing school districts in the state, and the issue on school grades, awarding school grades this year based on the assessment that we knew was problematic. I think that's a major problem for our state. And again, I would hope that the legislature will take action to address this when they come back into town. And again, I'll close on thanking the legislature for this study and thanking them for providing this so we have real information that we can give to our parents. Any questions? You want to do it individually, Chris, or? Go ahead.
I've got a question. In Seminole County, they've been pushing now for a couple of years to just drop this thing altogether and go with something more uniform, like the SAT or the ACT. What are your thoughts on that? I know
I've written 4 pieces now, or 3 pieces that have been presented in the newspapers and several newspapers around the state. For over 3 years, I fought extremely hard and to make sure that we move to a nationally normed test. And this would solve almost every one of these problems. And again, think of the dollars that we could save that we're putting into developing tests and AIR this year, for managing this. And we could take those dollars and maybe put them into creating a statewide teaching salary scale that we guarantee teacher increases every year based on real dollars that we put into a system. If we're really committed to great teaching, I would challenge the individuals in charge. Let's create something, a model in place, and let's take all these dollars that we're spending on over-testing students, and let's put them into teacher pay statewide and create a teacher salary statewide that, what I find with teachers that really is troubling is that a lot of teachers get into this for one reason. They love teaching. And then as they develop, there's no statewide salary system structure in place for them. So I'll keep pushing for the nationally normed test. It makes complete sense. I want to compare our students in Leon County with students in California, with students in Iowa. And there's several tests that are available that are out there. You mentioned some, there's others. They can pick the one. I don't want to pick the nationally normed test, but whatever they pick, we can use it for everything related to school grading, for teacher evaluation purposes, and also to make sure that we're giving our students adequate feedback on how they rank with other students throughout our nation. So I think it's very important. I'll continue that fight. I've got 2 or 3 that I'll keep writing and keep fighting. And if we had this, in a paper-based assessment, we would not have had these problems, or we would not have had to have this Alpine study, because we would not have had the problems that we had when we tried to test with the technology issues.
So do you disagree when the department says that the study shows that the FSA is valid?
Well, I just read, what I read came right from the study, the quotes that I gave you. And I think in fairness to the department, what they're saying, the items in the test, a lot of the items were valid. I mean, we never said that. But you can have items in a test, and then when you deliver it online, and if the students can't get online to take it, or they're bumped off, or we lose their material, and that's what the study verified that actually happened. So with that testing environment that was created, I don't think the results are valid. You know, and I feel very strongly about that. And I think Alpine bears that out if everybody would take some time to read this. Now, one of the things that the department did, and I salute them for it, they talked about how many kids completed the test. That's good information, fair information. And they talked about the validity of test questions. That's fair. But the technology issues that surrounded the test, the number of students that were bumped off, the number of students that didn't get a chance to complete the items that they wanted to, puts the whole test, the validity of the whole test in question. And I think that's what this report tells me when I read it. And I think what we can do, and I support the legislature, I support DOE. The only step I think DOE needs to take is they should have suspended grades, you know, for this year because of what happened. You know, let's admit what happened. It was a problem. Then we'll come back next year, hopefully fix it or move to a nationally normed test. But let's not punish students and teachers and schools. And also, when you give a school an F grade, you punish that community. You punish the entire community is punished with that. And why would we give that if we know that every student was not measured accurately on that given test? It just does not make sense to me.
How are you going to get around the issue of the teacher evaluations? I think a third of their evaluation is supposed to be based off this thing, and you said that no teacher would be punitively damaged because of this. So how are you getting around that?
Okay, here's what we did, and I'll give you a copy of it. I did a principal conference call today at 12:30 and approximately explained to the principals that we were not going to take the growth part of the evaluation to punitively affect our teachers. And I sent an email out to all of our teachers to inform them of that. So we've already taken action at the district level to make sure that our teachers are aware of that. Dave, as far as meeting to that, you might want to speak to that as to how we're going to, because Dave handles I think it'll be clear, but both of those actions have already been taken. The email was sent to every teacher because I knew when teachers heard this, I know how they worry and how they're concerned about, you know, making sure that they're doing the best job they can do. So we wanted to let them know right away. Dave?
Very specifically, you know, the teacher evaluation has two components. One of them is student growth. The other is instructional practice. What we've done is given teachers for this year, based on the information the superintendent just shared with you, an effective rating for this year, regardless of how their scores come in, because we believe that that threshold is the appropriate threshold for the kind of flawed testing experience that they've had. So that will be combined with their instructional practice. It will not be their complete evaluation, but for student growth, we're going to freeze it at effective for this year.
Go ahead.
Does that explain a third?
Yeah.
Yes,
I thought
that's,
So you guys are just not doing that at all? Because I thought state law made that mandatory. You're saying it's not? I'm confused.
no, what we're doing for the 14-15 evaluation is taking the student growth portion, and that student growth portion, which will be combined with the instructional practice at its percentage, will just be frozen at the effective, which is like a 3.3 in our evaluation. That will be combined with the second piece, which is instructional practice, to give you the complete summative evaluation at the end. So what a principal thinks about the work that you do and some of your professional work in the classroom will not be impacted. This will just be for the test related to the FSA and the state assessments. We also have other assessments locally that are SLOs that teachers do in classrooms without a VAM score, but this will be just for that portion.
And I don't know, to be honest with you, I'm not sure if how many other districts are going to do this, but we're going to be the first one that I've heard of. And if there's another one, we'll recognize them. But we're going to move forward on that. Because I tell you what we're not going to do, and you've got a good point on this. What we're not going to do is punitively affect a teacher's evaluation on the basis of a test that we know was flawed. That would not be fair. You know, it would not be in a sense of fairness to do that. The same thing is we're not going to retain a child at third grade that went in there and tried to take this test and couldn't even, you know, complete it or finish it or had a problem with it. It would not be, or at any grade, you know, it just wouldn't be fair. We're going to use our common sense and we're going to use a sense of fairness to get through this and to move forward in that direction. Great question, though. Other than that, we're going to be around. You've got the whole team here. We look forward to talking to you. Thank you for coming. And again, we appreciate your coverage on this. Thank you.